Nice one, Cyril. Welcome to Nice One, Cyril Extra Time. It's the podcast for Spurs fans who've seen it all, forgotten most of it, and still blame VAR. We'll look back at the Sparta Prague game and look ahead to Forest. Plus, what are the essential items you have to take to every match at the Lane? Spurs players who couldn't trap a ball, so many, and the unwritten rules of being a Spurs fan. With me is Nice One Cyril regular Kevin Acott. Morning, Kev.
Good morning. Morning, Simon.
Well, let's get cracking. Sparta, we absolutely clobbered them, 3-0. But it wasn't quite as straightforward as the scoreline would suggest.
No, it wasn't. And it wasn't a totally convincing performance either. I think we definitely didn't go backwards after the Brentford match, but I don't know. There were times where we were exposed, I think, a bit at the back, and you just wonder if a better team would have given us a harder. Well, obviously, a better team would have given us a harder match. But so in the end, the good things from Brentford were still there, and which was mainly Simmons and Kudus. And just a willingness to attack, which was great. I just had this fear that was just sort of a one-off aberration by Frank against Brentford, and he wasn't going to maintain it. But so overall positive, but just not brilliant yet. So.
Yeah, there was definitely a kind of a carryover from Brentford, wasn't there? I think we certainly showed attacking intent, and it looks as though Simmons now has a bit of freedom to do his thing. And when he does his thing, of course, he's very special. That ability to receive the ball on the turn and just get away. He's got some good sort of, I wouldn't say he's fast, he's quick, which is perhaps a slightly different thing. That ability to suddenly move very fast off the mark, and he sees everything. So that was, I think, encouraging. I totally agree. There were maybe too many opportunities often offered to a mediocre opposition to score. Never mind. And also the other thing, of course, was our goals were an own goal and 2 pens, but still, we'll take it. So we'll move on now, because I want to have a quick chat with you about what the essential items that you have to take with you to every match at the Lane.
Well, the first thing obviously is an absurd sense of optimism, and alongside a feeling of dread. Those two, I've realised, thinking about this question, that I take as little as possible. I even reduce my big bunch of keys to just my house key.
Wow.
And I've no idea why. And a bottle of water, but the bottle of water thing's a tricky one, because some of the security guards won't let you in with a bottle of water. Some of them do. So I have this little ritual of taking the cap off, hiding the cap somewhere about my person, and then walking in with the bottle of water. I won't buy anything. I never buy any food or drink inside, but I always need water. So, So that's sort of basically it.
I mean, bear in mind, all of the stewards listen to this podcast, and your card is marked.
Yes.
Well, that's interesting. I always used to take a Karamak. I mean, for 50 years, but they've stopped making Karamaks now, and it's left me in a parlous position, because what do you eat at half time? I mean, seriously, it's become an issue. I agree with you. You have to take in patience and resignation, I think. If you go in with a sense of resignation, you can't possibly be disappointed. That's my feeling.
That is true.
The other thing I always take is a contact lens for my right eye, which is weak, and I put it in the toilet with all of that kerfuffle and stink and what have you. And then about, 5 minutes in, it starts to irritate me, and I take it out. Right. So, so we've covered... Go on.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I may never have mentioned this to you, but I've mentioned it to a few people, that I, from the age of about 14 to 18, this is pre-contact lenses, I was supposed to wear glasses, and I wouldn't take them to Tottenham because they'd look so uncool, because basically my parents could only afford NHS glasses. So I looked a bit of an idiot. So basically, for 4 years, I watched Tottenham without being able to see anything at all. You can make your own punchline from that.
Lucky you is the only thing I could think of. Yes. Okay, well, that's interesting. And also quite interesting because I had a similar issue for about 5 years during my middle teens. There was a very pretty girl who used to just sit along from me. And this was before I had my eyes lasered and I couldn't wear the old style contact lenses. And I would also take my glasses off as I entered the ground just to look really handsome. It didn't work. And she quickly left the scene and left me bereft. Which is a bit like Spurs. Now, let's have a little chat about the players you've seen over the years. Spurs players who looked like they couldn't trap a ball. And honestly, there are so many, but who would be at top of your list?
Well, again, my first answer to this is that every single player we've ever had has sometimes looked like that. And I would include Kane and I would include Hoddle. There are times that somehow, with no explanation that appears to be the case. But those who consistently look like they've never played, Raziak comes to mind. Terrible player. Soldado, who I think was good before and after us, like so many players. He just struggled so much, and everyone wanted him to succeed, and he just didn't. So they tend to be strikers for me. We've had some terrible strikers, or some very unsuccessful, unlucky strikers, but.
I've got a good defender for you who fits nicely into this. It's Fatio, who was, I think, was he Argentinian? And we brought him in with some fanfare. And he looked like a bloke who, whenever he headed the ball, it was like his forehead had angles on it, and the ball would go off at any angle rather than the one it should go off at. Yeah. And the same with his feet, actually, that you didn't know where the ball was going. And also, I think we've got a kind of tradition of acquiring Brazilians who can't play, right? So you always think of the Brazilians as these incredibly gifted, skillful geniuses. And, of course, we've had Paulinho, who I didn't think he could play football. Sandro, although Sandro had his moments, he was a good tackler, but couldn't actually play football. And, of course, Emerson Royal. Royal. So, all right, well, we've covered a few, and there are so many more. I mean, Sissoko, possibly, Freund. I mean, Doherty. There you go. That's a good name. Yeah. He honestly, I've been reading some of these things about these players who somehow conned professional clubs into believing they could play. They were Parks players, and I feel like a lot of those probably were of that ilk. Yes. What's the last thing? What are your unwritten rules of being a Spurs fan?
I think one is just that, maintaining the optimism and the dread simultaneously. You have to be able to maintain both those things, otherwise you just go mad. I think also remembering old players over fondly. I think you have to do that, because I realised I did that, and I realised that actually quite recently on the podcast when Julie mentioned about John Pratt. That John Pratt actually wasn't a great player. And I sat there, I didn't say anything at the time, I sat there feeling a bit hurt because John Pratt was part of one of the first teams that I loved and that made me love Tottenham. And then I just started thinking, but he wasn't that good, was he? I just loved him because I was young and he was he was a Tottenham player. And I've always looked back on John Pratt, amongst others, fondly. And I think maybe you have to do that if you're an older Spurs fan. Maybe that doesn't apply to younger fans. I don't know.
It's interesting that, because I'm still disturbed by how often I think about Glenn Hoddle, and very fondly, and think about goals he scored and passes he made. And the man's older than me, 68 or something, and he's a twat, let's face it. I mean, he's proved that time and again. But what a player. And, this idiotic idea that, can you imagine him playing on these quality pitches with these players and blah, blah. It's zero sum, I think, is probably what that amounts to.
Yeah.
I also think the other thing is we get too excited about wonder kids coming out of the academy, and they almost always disappoint. But, because right now we've got Mikey Moore, who I do prattle on about quite a lot, who I think could become a very good player, but he's not going to be Messi, is he? Barnett Williams and so many before them, they come in, there was, I'm trying to think of some of those names. Gary Brooke turned up and you thought he was going to be a player. It's optimism, isn't it? It's kind of that desperate hope that something is going to, and we've had a couple. Ledley was good. Brilliant, actually, Harry and Glenn. But really, on the whole, I think it's been a pretty poor return.
Yeah, it has. Yeah. It has.
All right. Well, look, we're coming to the end of our quick extra time bit. We've got Forest coming up at the weekend. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, they're struggling, aren't they? Still, despite their new, fairly decent, competent manager. They're flirting with relegation, but they had a good win. I know this because I looked it up just before the podcast. They had a good win. I'd completely missed it on Thursday. And which is slightly worrying. They had a good away win. It's an unpredictable one. I think on paper. With a better team on paper, particularly the way we've played the last couple of games, we should win. But I don't know. I'm going to predict a draw, actually. I don't usually do that, but that'd be my prediction. 2-2.
Okay. There's a bit of subcontext here, like as there was with the Arsenal game, which is that they have Morgan Gibbs-White, who we famously failed to sign for reasons that maybe aren't entirely clear. And it just seems written, doesn't it, almost that he's going to destroy us in some way or another. And that's my concern, really. Excuse me, I don't think... They've got a couple of good players, of course. Elliot Anderson's a fabulous footballer. But as you say, I think we're a better team. The question, I think, is, are we going to go there with the same kind of attacking mindset? Or does Thomas think we're away or against a potentially dangerous team and suddenly go back into his shell?
Yeah. I mean, I hope he finds something in between rather than that complete impotence that we showed against sort of Arsenal away, complete lack of any kind of adventure at all. I think it makes sense to not go all out attacking them, but to just have some sense of, let's use Simmons. Let's start with Simmons. I really hope he does that. Let's start by assuming we can score against this lot, but just not go mad. It seemed the sensible approach.
It's getting the right balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, look, we will see how that plays out. So that's it. We're done for Nice One, Cyril Extra Time. Thanks to Kevin Acott. Kev will be back on Monday for our recording, where we'll be talking about the Forest victory and anything else that comes to mind. Why not give us a follow at Nice One Cyril Pod? That's on Twitter, and we have Facebook and Instagram and all the rest of it. And also, why not subscribe to the podcast on Apple and Spotify? That's it. We'll be back next week. Thanks for joining us. Come on, you Spurs. Nice one, Cyril.